It's interesting how, at certain moments in life, everything around us seems like a big test. Maybe you've experienced situations where, just when you decided to move toward a desire or specific goal, unexpected obstacles popped up, people questioned your choices, or you had doubts that left you feeling uncertain. These experiences don't happen by chance. Some say these occurrences are signs that the universe is checking if our intentions are genuine, if we're truly ready to handle what we've asked for. When we see things from this perspective, it becomes easier to realize that these events aren't just here to get in our way, they can serve as a call to strengthen our confidence and align our essence with what we want. And when we understand this process, it enhances the feeling that our efforts are indeed worthwhile, as each test holds the opportunity for growth and evolution. If you stick with this conversation until the end, you'll get a clear view of how this mechanism works in practice. You might discover a new way to perceive your daily challenges. So, with that, you may find clarity on how to act when life feels tough or confusing. Don't be fooled. Often, what appears to be a major obstacle is exactly the space we need to prove to ourselves that we're ready to experience something greater. This perspective can completely transform how we face problems, making them less daunting and more instructional. When we talk about the universe's tests, we're not suggesting there's some invisible force punishing us or testing us just for kicks. It's a symbolic way to understand that reality often responds to what we feel inside. If we're feeling insecure, we may attract circumstances that force us to confront that insecurity head-on, almost as if we're being invited to resolve it before we receive the long-desired reward. If we genuinely wish for change or prosperity, it's common for challenges to arise to see if we're truly committed to that path. It's like a mirror, what we carry inside reflects on the outside, and every seemingly negative situation can become a crucial factor in our growth process. That's why some people say that when they start praying, visualizing, or setting sincere intentions, it seems like difficulties multiply at first. This doesn't mean that praying or setting goals causes problems. It means that when we focus on something we consider important, we begin to notice all the areas of our lives that need adjustments for that goal to materialize. In this way, everything that was out of sync starts popping up in front of us, demanding action and change. A practical example, imagine someone who decides to be more patient and loving. Suddenly, that person faces arguments, differing opinions, and even hurtful comments that test their ability to stay calm. It's not that the world got worse out of nowhere. It's that, by deciding to incorporate patience into their behavior, life presents situations where they need to practice that virtue. And, of course, if they stay firm on this purpose, they will learn valuable lessons and emerge even more convinced of who they want to be. These kinds of tests can also come up when we talk about relationships, careers, or any dream that represents internal transformation. Let's say someone wants a promotion at work but doesn't feel deserving. At every step of the process, a challenge appears, a more complex project or the need to lead a team. All of this turns into a testing ground for the person to develop skills they may not be fully ready for yet. In this sense, the universe is that little push that says, "You said you want to get there? Then show that you have the necessary skills." This is how our actions end up revealing who we truly are, with situations acting as a lens to our essence. Those who go through such tests with humility and determination often realize that each obstacle helps shape a better version of themselves. A salesperson aiming for higher targets discovers, through difficulties, techniques and approaches that make them more skilled and attentive. Someone looking for true love may face initial disappointments that serve to mature their emotions and clarify the type of partner they really desire. In these situations, even suffering and frustration gain meaning when used to grow. After all, no one leaves life the same way they entered. Each experience, good or bad, changes us and teaches us. Sometimes, we wonder, why am I going through this when I just wanted something simple, like more peace or family harmony? But that's where the big insight lies. To achieve inner peace, we need to deal with points of imbalance that might be hidden or repressed, like hurts, resentments, or even negative habits we don't even notice. That's why the universe seems to poke at those wounds, pushing us to make a real commitment to change. You can't seek harmony without purging the accumulated tensions first. So, discussions happen that clear the air, behaviors need to be revisited, and in a way, there's a necessity to roll up our sleeves to resolve both internal and external issues. When we grasp this logic, it becomes clear that it's not enough just to ask or wish for something without being ready for the transformation that the desire entails. If someone wants to be healthier, they might start paying attention to all the times they neglect basic self-care, like diet and sleep schedule. Every test, like an unexpected flu or unusual fatigue, arises to show that you can't ignore your body if the goal is overall health. Of course, this can create discomfort, since change requires effort and the willingness to accept that not everything was working well before. But this is the true essence of what we call a universal test. It's not about punishment but rather a personalized lesson encouraging us to reflect and move in a direction more aligned with our dream or goal. There are countless stories of people who have overcome significant challenges and transformed their life stories. You've probably met or heard of someone who lost their job and, in that supposed failure, found the space to pursue something they passionately loved. Or even people who faced tumultuous relationships but learned about self-love and healthy boundaries, which rewarded them with much more balanced connections. In all these cases, you can see a common thread. Before reaching the desired outcome, each individual had to become someone compatible with that result. The universe, metaphorically, just figured out how to rearrange the scenarios to start that change. Similarly, when we talk about manifesting desires, we're not just referring to writing goals on paper or visualizing what we want. Manifestation involves dealing with concrete reality, facing the ups and downs that come our way. Sometimes, we create a romantic expectation in our minds that all we need to do is think positively, and everything will work out. But experience shows that thinking positively without action doesn't eliminate the lessons we still need to learn. That's why some insist that positive thinking should come with a willingness to confront whatever is necessary. When difficulties arise, if the person is prepared, they won't see this as a reason to give up but rather as confirmation that they're on the right track. After all, why would the universe send tests if there wasn't a possibility of achieving what we desire? It's worth remembering that our attitude towards tests makes all the difference. If someone constantly complains or plays the victim, they might prolong their stay in that cycle of challenges. On the flip side, those who seek to extract lessons and remain firm in their purpose tend to strengthen their self-esteem and faith. Over time, that phase that seemed chaotic becomes an inspiring story capable of motivating others. You realize that the difficulty wasn't an insurmountable obstacle but a step on the ladder of growth. Imagine someone dreaming of being a successful speaker or communicator. Before facing large audiences, it's normal for them to go through embarrassing situations, forgetting their lines, facing uninterested crowds, or even receiving harsh criticism. These episodes, which could initially be seen as failures, are the workshop where confidence and adaptability are developed. Those who persist, turning each criticism into a lesson, enhance their skills. It's as if each phase is a level that, once surpassed, qualifies the person for something greater. Soon enough, no one remembers those initial stumbles but rather the level of excellence that has been reached. When crises arise, we tend to see it as a downfall, not noticing that the crisis can be exactly what puts us on the path of evolution. Someone looking for more financial independence, for example, might face adverse situations at work or need to completely reevaluate their spending to avoid accumulating debt. It seems like a nightmare, but in the end, if that person sees the context as a nudge to gain financial literacy, discover new career paths, and even create alternative income sources, they come out stronger. Later on, when looking back, they realize it all made sense because it forced them to take bold steps they hadn't considered before. And that's a typical universal test, as it involves confronting deeply ingrained patterns to make way for a new reality. Another crucial point is that when facing these tests, we also confront our shadow, meaning the parts of ourselves we often don't recognize or prefer to hide. These can be feelings of envy, anger, or fears we don't admit to. When we aim for something significant, it's likely these aspects will surface, making us question whether we are deserving or if we have the strength needed. These moments of internal conflict are pivotal. If we flee from them, we tend to repeat negative patterns. If we face them honestly, we begin to understand how every fragment of our psyche can be transformed into something more constructive. That's the true personal alchemy, turning what we consider imperfect into a source of learning. Many ask themselves, but how do I know if I'm heading in the right direction amidst so many difficulties? One tip is to observe your level of engagement and persistence. Do you feel motivated to keep going despite the setbacks? Can you see any progress, however small, compared to before? Do you feel your skills or emotional capacity are expanding? If the answer is yes, it could indicate that the test isn't a sign that everything is wrong but rather that there's progress. And if there's progress, we're usually on the right track. On the other hand, if with every stumble your only reaction is to give up or blame external factors, it might be time to rethink not just the objective but primarily the mindset you're adopting to reach it. Another enriching aspect of this whole process is realizing that, in many tests, we're not alone. Often, we find people who appear out of nowhere to support us, unexpected advisors, or even friends and family who become more present than ever. This creates a deep sense of connection to something bigger, as if life is organizing a support network for those willing to learn. In those moments, it's worth recognizing that this help is also part of the test, the ability to embrace and appreciate support, to develop gratitude, and to share achievements with others. After all, manifesting desires isn't just about individual interests, it's also about how much we can grow as human beings, contributing to the well-being of those around us. Even though many people see the word challenge as something negative, just remembering historical examples or even figures from our everyday lives who have turned their situations around can shift that perspective. There are individuals who, after an accident, developed the willpower to live life more intensely. Others who, after financial losses, redefined their view of work and discovered passions they never imagined. And there are those who, after romantic disappointments, found the opportunity to refine their self-love, recognizing limits and deep needs. All these are examples of how adversities can trigger a maturity that often wouldn't happen if everything was comfortable all the time. In this scenario, it's important to highlight that transformation doesn't happen only in the mind or heart, but also in practical actions. One of the big secrets to deal well with life's tests is to align desire, intention, and concrete action. If the goal is to have healthier relationships, just talking about it won't cut it. For example, you need to work on communication, learn to listen, address problems without being aggressive, and have empathy to understand others. Those dreaming of financial prosperity might need to dive into courses, books, and money management practices, along with reevaluating limiting beliefs that sabotage success. There's always real effort that walks hand in hand with faith or focused mental energy. This combination of forces, along with the understanding that obstacles are springboards, creates a solid foundation for achieving what you want. Even in the toughest moments, it's valuable to remember that each challenging situation can be seen as preparation for something greater. Having this perspective opens up space for hope, but not a passive hope, rather, an active hope that drives you to act, study, and seek creative solutions. There's a very positive consequence in moving with this mindset. Every small victory along the way boosts self-confidence, showing that we are indeed capable of growth and generating real change. Little by little, this self-confidence turns into a kind of attraction energy because we start to vibrate in tune with what we're searching for. When people notice someone determined and consistent, support and admiration tend to grow, and that resonates in the surrounding environment. It's normal to feel tired or question whether it's really worth continuing during this journey. In those moments, it helps to remember inspiring stories that show if there were no challenges, the end result wouldn't be so valuable. Many who are now references in various fields went through pain, disbelief, or lack of resources. Still, they used each tough stage as fuel to refine skills, strengthen character, and even develop empathy for those facing similar issues. When everything is too easy, it's common to fall into complacency and overlook how we can further develop our potential. If, at any point, you think your tests are bigger than you can handle, remember that there are always internal and external resources to face situations. Praying, meditating, talking to trusted people, or seeking professional help are valid paths for those going through crises. Often, all we need is a bit of mental clarity to realize that we have more capacity than we think. And if insecurity strikes again, try to recall times when you overcame difficulties in the past. It doesn't matter if they were smaller problems or huge situations, the fact you're here now, reading these words, shows you've survived everything that has happened before. This realization generates a real sense of strength, as it demonstrates that, regardless of circumstances, there's a part of you that finds ways to keep moving forward. So, it's worth adopting a mindset of observation. Instead of diving into complaints and lamentations, ask yourself questions like, what can I learn from this? How is this specific situation challenging me to change? And what kind of person do I need to be to solve this problem or achieve this goal? The answers tend to be revealing because they show exactly what qualities you still need to develop. And there's nothing wrong with recognizing that you haven't arrived there yet. On the contrary, that's the spark to dive into readings, conversations, training, or even a deeper self-discovery process. Many extraordinary discoveries emerge precisely from these moments of inner honesty when we admit that we are all learners in life. With each test you overcome, a priceless sense of achievement arises. Gradually, you'll notice that what once scared you becomes familiar, something you have control over. That's a sign you're getting closer to the version of yourself you wish to become. Instead of panicking when a new difficulty arises, you can start to face it with curiosity, thinking, what will I discover about myself now, or what ability is being called upon at this very moment? This way of viewing circumstances is powerful because it turns frustrations into lessons, ensuring that no experience goes to waste. Maybe you're wondering how to maintain an optimistic attitude day to day without falling into discouragement when tests come up. One of the most effective ways is to imagine your future self, the person you want to be, or the place you want to reach. Ask yourself, how would that person handle this problem? If the answer involves patience, wisdom, or a creative solution, try to act that way now. This small mental projection technique can serve as a guide for practical actions, shortening the distance between who you are today and who you wish to be. Each time you make a decision based on this perspective, you take another step toward your goal. And, before you know it, you'll realize that you're acting with more self-confidence because you begin to embody qualities that previously existed only in your imagination. In the same vein, try to celebrate every bit of progress. You don't have to wait for grand achievements to acknowledge that you're making strides. Even small daily victories, like staying calm during a tough conversation or meeting a deadline without procrastinating, should be appreciated. This celebration reinforces a positive cycle because your mind registers that effort yields results. Thus, when the next test comes along, you have a history of successes to draw inspiration from. This accumulation of small victories ultimately becomes a foundation for bigger accomplishments, creating an extremely beneficial cumulative effect. As you travel this path, many people feel the urge to share their experiences, whether with friends, family, or communities focused on self-discovery. This exchange is incredibly rich. When we share our experiences, hear advice, and realize we aren't alone in facing difficulties, it helps lessen feelings of isolation. If you ever find a safe space to discuss your challenges, take advantage of it. And if you happen to see a message or content that resonates with someone you know, it's worth sharing because sometimes that person needs exactly that kind of reflection. That's why channels discussing these topics become sources of comfort and inspiration for so many. As we wrap up this topic, it's clear there's a common thread. The universe somehow orchestrates circumstances for each individual to prove to themselves how committed they are to their desires. And with each step, that individual discovers new dimensions of strength and wisdom they never suspected they had. It's as if, across all these tests, a person gets closer to what they've always dreamed of. And it doesn't have to be mystical or out of reach to work. It's a pattern that can be observed in practical life, in simple daily examples, all the way to more complex and challenging situations. What I leave you with as a final thought is that each of us can look at our own difficulties and see them as a gateway to broader transformation. When we understand this mechanism, there's a sense of relief because it becomes evident that we're not victims of chaos, but rather part of an evolutionary process. If you think about it, you'll see that many of your victories were born from moments when everything seemed to go wrong. So, maybe it's time to look around and ask, where am I being tested right now? And what can I do to turn this test into a stepping stone toward my goals? This shift in perspective is often the deciding factor between stagnation and progression. At this point, one last suggestion arises: pay attention to how you feel about these ideas and consider carrying them forward in your routine. If it resonates, you might even share a comment about your experiences or reflections, as this exchange often enriches everyone involved. And if you're not yet part of the group actively following these topics, just click the button that lets you keep up with our content continuously. That way, when new topics about signs, messages, and phenomena that deepen our understanding of reality arise, you won't miss out and will keep nurturing a mindset more connected with the subtle aspects of our everyday lives. The summary of all this is simple yet impactful: life constantly presents us with opportunities to learn and grow. Each test might seem challenging at first, but when faced with courage and honesty, it transforms into fuel for achieving our greatest desires. By aligning will, action, and a flexible attitude toward difficulties, we become capable of receiving what we want since we start to embody the person in tune with those achievements. And so, from test to test, from overcoming to overcoming, we discover that we are capable of much more than we ever imagined.